I am Bryce Newberger, and this is the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix, Chapter 33. Eldrich arose late the next morning. Mel was already packed with two small satchels filled with dried fruits and basic survival gear like a bedroll, knife, matches, and rope, among other things. The boy was looking forward to a woodland trek across far lands he had never visited, but he'd been lying if he said he felt up to it. Regardless, Eldrich hefted his pack and began to stretch in anticipation for the new quest ahead of him. The journey started off with a refreshing stroll through trees and wilderness. There was no sign of civilization once they had passed beyond the sight of Mel's cabin. The birds sang, the wind shushed, and the moon shone. It was a good day. About halfway into the day, Mel dropped his pack next to a spring and knelt beside the water. "What are we doing?" Eldrich asked. "Here, we will take a rest." The older traveler spoke with his eyes closed and a smirk touching the corner of his mouth. He was the perfect picture of serenity. "Okay," the younger traveler said with indifference. He stuck his head in the water and let the cool feeling wash over him. After a long while seemed to pass, Eldrich began to pace in anticipation to get going. "Are you rested up so soon?" Mel spoke from the same serene kneeling position as before. "Well, yeah," Eldrich surmised. "Good," answered the master as the student looked to the trees rubbing his neck. A stick smacked into Eldrich's unsuspecting back as he let out a yelp. "Then you can fit in some practice." "No fair," pronounced the boy as he rolled away from his now aggressive companion. Eldrich seized a stick from the ground and lunged at the elder. Mel slapped away the boy's makeshift weapon with ease and had the boy wrapped up in a headlock in an instant. "That is not a weapon." He released Eldrich and pulled out his bedroll from his satchel. When Mel unraveled it, he showed that he had two finely crafted blades, not just one. He retrieved the one Eldrich hadn't seen before and handed it to the boy. The sword had a golden handle that shone like the sun. The crossguard was an elegantly swirled interlocking circle, and the handle was a smooth golden rod with two complex rigid geometric shapes at its base. The blade was long and thin. The artifact was as impossibly light just as its companion blade was. Mel spoke. "This is yours, and I have waited a long time to give this an owner." "Mine?" Eldrich was delighted and astonished. "Why?" "Because, Eldrich, when your training is complete, you will be a swordsman without rival, and you will need a blade to match that." The sentence continued. "Also, this relic will one day pass on to a member of your bloodline who will do a great deed with it." The prophecy went way over the 11-year-old's head, but he repeated aloud the words that stuck out to him as he examined his new prize. "Bloodline? Great deed?" "Yes. He will give it up," Mel answered, though the boy wasn't really listening. As the two resumed their trip, Eldrich continued to admire his new possession. They had finally reached a path that led them across some signposts that they ignored. Mel seemed to know where he was going. The two travelers passed an area with a low ditch. Out of the trenches on each side arose an accumulation of 4 ruffians. The men laughed as they sprung their trap, reveling in their self-admired ingenuity. A skinny man dressed in rags like the rest spoke with a voice that reminded Eldrich of the squealing of a rat. "That's a shiny trinket you have there, boy. Hand it over." "Never," Eldrich refused as he steadied himself into a ready position. The men laughed at the sprightly victim. Mel stepped forward, and the thugs got a bit more serious. He pulled out his bedroll and withdrew his sword from it. The ruffians responded by raising their own weapons to the ready. Eldrich smiled as he anticipated watching his master dispatch these pickpockets in no time. Mel held out his bedroll to the man. "Here you are." The rat-voiced man snatched it like a mouse, expertly retrieving cheese from a trap. But this trap didn't snap shut. Next, Mel fished out his dried fruits and tossed them to the men as well. "That's right," said a larger man with a deep voice. "No!" Eldrich swiped his blade at the hand of the large brute. His sword stopped short of the naked flesh, stopped by Mel's sword. The elder had unsheathed his sword and parried the blow so fast it was just a flash to the entire procession. All stopped and looked on in awe. "Hearts, Eldrich," Mel spoke softly. "Hearts." You can keep your things. We want no trouble from you." The bandits dropped their newly acquired spoils at the travelers' feet. They had calculated risk versus reward, and a humble bedroll plus dried fruit wasn't worth matching might against an elder who moved like lightning. Wait, Mel called out as they had backed up slowly. All of them stopped at the command. You are hungry. Let me give you something to eat. No, we're fine, really. Mel walked over to a tree, but no one else moved. He touched its bark and a host of apples fell to the ground. At least let me leave you with these. 3 of the 4 men stormed off into the forest, afraid of the mysterious elder. One remained, shocked by the alien behavior. The lingering one asked in sheer confusion, We were robbing you and this helpless boy. Eldrich frowned at that remark. You could have stopped us. You could have killed us. Why did you hand everything over? Mel walked up to the mousy, disempowered thief and placed a hand on his shoulder. Erwin, he called the man by name. You were hungry. I wanted to feed you. You were cold. I wanted to give you a bed. I am sorry, the man said with a trembling soul. The way he worded the response wasn't an apology as much as he was reflecting on himself. It was a statement that he was a sorry human being, that he was no good. Then go and sin no more, the holy elder tasked the man. The man ran off with his compatriots. Eldrich scoffed. We should have taught them a lesson. We showed them a greater lesson than dismemberment would have done. To run from a fight they can't win. Mel turned towards Eldrich and his gaze enraptured the child. The first 3 were afraid of my power. But the last one, Erwin, was in fear of my goodness. The night began to creep upon the 2 campers. They had traveled for the rest of the day and set up their camp around dusk. Eldrich was bushed. He had never walked for an entire day. His feet throbbed and tingled with numbness. The cooking fire smoldered with dim orange embers. As all young boys do when attempting to sleep in a strange circumstance, he laid awake questioning everything silently in his head. After a while, he decided that he would not get any sleep until some nagging questions were answered. He scrutinized Mel as best he could as the 2 lay in the darkness. Master, if you let all the bad guys go, how can you beat the evil you always talk about? Eldrich asked, half expecting the elder to tell him to go to bed. Mel turned towards him as if they were 2 friends having a slumber party. Those people weren't evil. What they were doing was evil. I stopped that in a way that helped them to show it was wrong. Are you against killing anyone? Eldrich questioned. Yes. It is my hope that no one would have to die by my hand. Though that does not mean I will not fight. Had those men been set on hurting you, I would have stopped them as quickly as I stopped you from hurting them. But we let them go. Eldrich sat up as if he were just ready to go back and hunt those men down. They will just rob the next people who pass by, and we won't be there to stop them. And if I killed them, would not another set of brigands have taken their spot? Mel sat up and attained Eldrich's attention. The world is full of people jumping at the chance to hurt one another. Remember again that our mission is to change the world. We will not accomplish that by killing a few thieves at a time. You are right that my actions will likely not change those men, but for the cost of a bedroll and a few fruits, I was able to show them forgiveness. Forgiveness has the power to change hearts. Eldrich noted the repetition of that phrase. The tired boy let out a monster of a yawn and laid back down as he suddenly lost his will to converse. Well, I don't agree with your weird ways. With that, he closed his eyes and rolled over. Mel smiled and laid down as well. Good night, Eldrich. Thank you for listening. I'm Bryce Newberger, and this has been the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix. If you enjoyed what you heard and you'd like to purchase the full book, then either look up New Books on the Google Play bookstore, NEU Books, or simply click the link in the description. The book is only $5, and I appreciate your support.